Hi. I know I've been away for a while. I apologize. I really do want to keep up with this stuff because without you guys, we got squat. I'm going to take a break, haha, from all the art stuff and move to a different art form, making music. Um, and tonight I'm going to talk about uh, the setup that I've built for doing Hopeful Machines live, which is something I'm really really proud of. It's kind of something that's been running through the back of my head for years and years and years, trying to excuse me, trying to build a setup that will be interesting for me to perform with and interesting to listen to. And one of the main things that I really find interesting is, and really what the entire project has always been about, is working with kind of these evolutionary ideas, where working with what is presented to you and trying to interact back and forth, much like painting, to create something that makes sense and is beautiful that maybe you wouldn't have come up with just on your own. So the big trick has been figuring out how to make the gear do that, to explain to the gear what you want it to do, and to then set things up and program it so we'll do all those things. So first, we're going to talk about the back end, which is everything that's happening over here on the computer. I'm using a piece of software called Ableton Live, which has been around for about 10, 12 years, something like that. And I've been using it for about that long. Ableton was remarkable in that it was the first piece of software that was developed specifically with the idea of live performing of electronic music. Up until that point, DAWs were made for recording, and if you wanted to do live stuff, you had to go and you play it all live or run it through a sequencer, or it was just a whole new way to look at things. And also up until that point with sequencers, everything had been very much about kind of, you start the song and it goes through this progression. And yeah, there's room to move if you want to really get in there and tweak stuff, but the song was basically the song. With Ableton, it's got a number of modes. One mode is essentially the DAW mode, which is Digital Audio Workstation. I never really use it in this mode, but it's pretty much like any other piece of audio software, where you just work linearly. If you're familiar with video editing, it's similar to that. But the interesting one is the performance mode. Performance mode, as you can see, is made up of these grids. It's broken up into as many of these individual vertical grids as possible, as you want. Each one represents usually an instrument, and that's how I have mine broken up, is by instruments. And then you have these horizontal scenes, which represent a progression in time. Each of these little pieces of information here represent any number of things. As an example, over here we've got this guy. It's just a drum loop, and he lives there. Or this one. So there's two different kinds of, I should explain, there's two different kinds of data that you're working with in these columns. One is audio, which is what those were. The other one is MIDI. And what MIDI is doing is it is sending information to all of the keyboards and other various things. It's sending time codes telling you where you are in the song, and that goes to all the outboard gear. You can also route it internally, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. But basically, what you need to know is the two types of data. One is audio, the other is the MIDI. MIDI's been around since the 70s. It's you can just do amazing shit with it. So right now we're going to talk about a song that I've been working on for a while with Hopeful Machines called Accidents and Other Incidents, because it is relatively linear and easy to understand and easy to follow. So now I've given you kind of a basic introduction of what's going on. I'll talk a little bit about the gear. This is a Roland MX1. It's the heart of the entire live setup, and it is one of the coolest pieces of hardware ever made. And it's very difficult to prioritize what the most important thing is to talk about at any given time, so bear with me. But it's it's actually kind of like a hardware version of Ableton in that, most mixes are made to mix. This is made as a performance tool, and it has built-in effects, beat slicing, and one of the biggest things that it does is it takes MIDI timecode, which means that Ableton over here can say, hey, this song is 80 beats per minute. This goes, oh, it's 80 beats per minute, and so it syncs all of its internal effects to it, and then it spits that back out. It's got what's called an effect send built into it too, so you can send audio out of it to have effects put on in the back end. So if I want to, I send audio out, and I've got this little piece of gear here, and really all it's doing is adding a delay to it, to the signal, and then back in. But since it's got the MIDI time clock out of this and MIDI time clock into this, the delay on this is always in sync. So if the tempo changes in the song, it all changes with that, and it just all stays nice and in sync without me having to dick around, which is really important. So anyway, this is the heart of the thing. This synth over here, which my head is in the way for, is another, really hope you can hear all this audio, is another product by Roland from the same line. They're made to work together, thus the color scheme. And it's just a great little keyboard. And one of the main reasons I specifically want it is because almost all of this gear up here can only send like one signal or one note at a time, whereas I can do chords with those. Which obviously allows for a lot more options as far as... And then the phone stopped. Anyway, so it's a great synth. It's got all sorts of the usual gadgets and doohickeys you would expect. It's got arpeggiation built into it, etc., etc., and so on and so forth. Handling the bass on the outboard rig is an older piece of gear called an MC303. Which you will probably be most familiar with from the beginning of More Human Than Human by White Zombie. That's an MC303. And it sounds like playing the MIDI from this. Alright, so that's that. Next up we have two small synths made by Korg. the Volca Keys and the Volca FM. The Volca Keys is basically just made to do leads, things like that. And then the Volca FM is based on a DX7 and has all kinds of presets, things like that. Right now I'm using it for as a string preset. It also has an arpeggiation built into it, which is just weird, but anyway, so this is what the Volca Keys sound like. And so I've got the Volca Keys running up through that Chaos pad there. So, and then the Volca FM, which sounds like this. And it's running through another little chord Chaos pad too. You can also do cool stuff like transpose on the fly. So next time it hits a note, it'll come in lower and slowly get higher. All right. So that's that. Next, this is a TB03, which is a brand new boutique remake of the TB303s, or yeah, which is just the classic acid house bass line. You've heard it on everything, and it's one of my very favorite sounds in the world. And it sounds like this. Alright, so this little guy up here is a Me-Blip Triode, and it's just another good like little bass machine that sounds like this. This little guy, which I'm not actually going to be using, but it's cool, so I'm going to show it to you. It's called a Castle Synth. And it's a little mini modular. You can actually like move the patch cables in it around and just see what it does. Right now I'm still figuring out the best way to integrate this and everything. So, that's that. Now, a lot of, like I was saying, a lot of this is all about randomness. So, one of the other kind of random tools I have going on is down here where you probably can't see it. I guess you can. Is an iPod shuffle that just runs on random.
I got tried and sentenced the same day. It doesn't work like that. But you see, that's the way.
So this just runs under everything.
Mine. And so that's the way it is. It's like a movie. Real death houses aren't like that, but you...
A delay is actually coming from this little dude, which is again synced with all this stuff. Now, let's talk a little bit about what this thing can do. And I can just, I'll use just a couple of these parts as an example. Let's see. Alright, so that just gives it some context.
Over and whammo. There goes the enemy. Obliterated.
Actually, you know what?
But what are they doing in the meantime? What do you mean, what are they doing?
So this thing has a lot of really cool shit built into it. It's got tone filter.
Big waste of time, let me tell you. We get the first lick. Over and whammo. Absolutely.
Built-in effects.
I'm Gabriel with a golden
Flanger.
And when I put it to my lips, it comes out pure. Comes out a symphony. Comes out the smell of
Well, bit crusher distortion.
fresh flowers somehow.
Its own delay.
Comes out beautiful. Comes out
If you want to go really extreme.
Comes out beautiful. Comes out beautiful.
This weird roll effect once the next sound comes up.
Ever see a face? Need I have mine in the grave someplace.
And a scatter, which is also very cool.
All wishes ended. Little pieces.
It also has these beat effects, which is all this stuff here. So you can hear it kind of gating through all that stuff. All of which can be changed on the fly. And of course, added to the other effects.
No, excuse me, you go and see him now, and all your problems will be solved before the day's over.
So one of the ways I use all that stuff is some more randomness. I have these sets of loops that just kind of run underneath the rest of the song that I can bring up or kill. So these loops just do what they do. There's maybe a dozen of them and they just kind of randomly cycle through. If I want to bring them in quiet, I can kill the high end and so even just by playing with the scatter knob,
Preaching the word of God. And of course it's follows. Since the state has proven that there is no God, that would make the function of a minister somewhat academic as well.
There is a God.
I could even add some of that extra delay on there.
No God.
But there was a sign this morning was trying to explain what happened. How the Earth changed its orbit and started to move away from the sun, and that within 1, 2, or maybe 3 weeks at the most, there wouldn't be any more sun. We go.
All right. So with this song, I've got it set up so that there's an intro section, which is just a progression through the intro of the song before it really gets going. But once it gets going, I had to get a little clever with the MIDI because Ableton isn't really made to do this, but using what's called a MIDI loopback device, I run the MIDI out of Ableton and then back into itself, and so I'm just kind of tricking it to do to do what I want it to do. So I created a set of pieces of data, these guys right here, and there's a protocol in Ableton called follow actions, and each of those has a different follow action. It just says go from this to this. It just picks a random one in this group. And each of those sends a MIDI signal out to essentially the master scene list. And each one of those represents one of the master scenes in the song. So once it gets going, I hit that, and it starts running through these at random. So I never know what it's going to give me. And each one's different. Each one has different parts for all the synths. And so I kind of have to work with all of that. So now I'm going to try, assuming I don't fuck this up too badly, to run through the song and see how it goes.
It all depends on your point of view. Even if it's true.
That's how all that stuff works. It has taken me a very, very long time to figure out how to get all that stuff to do its thing. And it's still a work in progress, but it's getting there. It's really, really close. This is by far the most complicated of any of the live rigs that we've got, but that's by necessity. With Stoneburner now, I'm doing a lot of singing, and so I don't want to be dicking around live too much with that stuff. Just enough to keep it really interesting. And obviously, Ego is really, really live, so the tracks are just the tracks. But for this, it is, as it has always been, pretty much about how much I enjoy performing it. And if I'm not enjoying it, then there's no point in doing it. So again, as always, thank you very much for supporting us with all of our projects. You guys mean the world to us. Thank you.